Okay, Ivan from Material Security here. Today I am joined by Erik, Wille, and Noll from Cabinetworks Group. Just a bit about the company. They are the largest privately held cabinet maker in the US with 19 brands and over 8,000 employees, headquartered in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And there's probably a good chance that Cabinetworks is in your kitchen. I don't know because I don't spend enough time in my kitchen. Erik, thank you both so much for joining our session today. Happy to have you here.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I can jump in on that. So again, Erik Wille, Chief Information Security Officer. So I've been here just coming up on 1 year. So I think still in the comparatively to other team members, I'm still the new guy on the block here.
Yeah. And I'm Noll. I'm the Director of Infrastructure and Service Delivery for Cabinetworks Group. Basically, all of my infrastructure, network, server, desktop, telephony, all that falls underneath me.
All right, let's dive right into security. What is your just general approach to security across all of Microsoft 365? And in terms of maybe which risk areas do you think are more important than others to cover? And then how do you think about prioritization about where to apply protections or where you need specific visibility?
Yeah, it's definitely so it's a broad topic, right? Because as we think about 365, it's comprised of so many things within productivity suite. We're talking about collaboration and all the different components. And really, I'd tell you, one of our biggest focuses this year was on the technology stack that we had in place and kind of a couple different lenses there is one, looking at are we actually utilizing the tools that we have in? Two, looking for overlap between the tools, because as the security space continues to evolve, you really are starting to see this overlap. And it's interesting, as Tom and I have talked about this from an infrastructure and security side, you see the same thing happen, right? You think about a Venn diagram, well, it's almost like an eclipse here as we continue to overlap each other. And the third one is really looking at some of our tools where maybe they don't meet the test of time, that it was a great decision at the time, but it is time to reevaluate. The marketplace is changing. So we've really heavily been looking at that. So as we apply that to 365, that's really what led us to Material and reevaluating the whole email space. And to take a step back, I think we would do ourselves a disservice if we looked at it as just focusing on email, right? As I mentioned, 365 is so broad. As we get into productivity, now we're talking about sensitive data. We're talking about not, and that's within OneDrive, within different documents. That could be SharePoint, that could be Exchange itself within email, and really starting to focus on what really matters to us. Because I think as we look at the phishing space, the lack of better terms, it's become commodity, that there's a lot out there that focusing on just the phishing component, but there's way more than that, that we know at some point a mailbox is going to get popped, somebody's going to lose their credentials. What then? And really focusing on, okay, can we replace some of our partners with somebody that can take care of the what then? They can give us a deeper look into, did they have access to sensitive information? What is the actual risk posture or the risk result of an incident to the organization? And that's been a huge move for us rather than looking for point solutions in every area.
That's a great point. We say this a lot in Material, right? So your productivity suite, whether it's Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, it isn't just another application. It's really critical infrastructure to the business for all the reasons that you mentioned. And if you look at all the attention and focus that gets given to cloud infrastructure, whether it's AWS, Azure, or GCP, we just haven't really seen the same level of focus for the productivity suite specifically. It gets lumped in with other SaaS applications. But as you pointed out, it's a much wider, broader attack surface and risk area.
Right.
Just curious, that statement, is that something you guys would generally agree with?
100%.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, and we can look at it through the lens that I loved how you put it on just getting lumped in with cloud security suite, that then you're back into the game of what I mentioned. You're buying different point solutions based on your perceived risks. And now the inefficiencies continue to grow with swivel chair activity. It was this type of risk, I got to go here. It's this type of risk, I got to go here. And that's, again, back to one of our focus areas. Can we start replacing incumbent partners with those that give a broader lens to what's actually going on within the organization? And this one and moving to Material has been a huge win for us, starting to gain the visibility and curb some of the risks within our environment. As we mentioned, that it's a lean team. So efficiency is huge for us in finding those opportunities where you don't necessarily have the ability to add headcount. How can we take what we already have and make them more efficient, and really at the same time empowering our employees all spread all over the globe, so you have team members that are out in countries that are, we'll say, adversarial to us, and still have to allow them to be able to work, understand the risk, what behavior and what's going on, without creating a lot of friction for them. And this has been a huge win for that.
Yes, it has. Basically, somebody had to be in there babysitting it constantly, and that's not the case with materials. And the other thing that was the incumbent was it was at the gateway level. With material, it not only looks at the emails coming in and going out, but it also goes back and looks at the legacy, what was already in your mailbox, which I think is a huge benefit. And I'm very pleased with. But I mean, you set it up, let it run, and only use it whenever you need to search for something.
Right. Yeah. And I, I think it's a testament to that is it's Tom and I were on a call today and talking through something that had gotten into the environment and looking at an email. And as we were going through, what tool are you using to look at it? He goes, I'm in Material. To me, that was huge because typically it would have been, we're over an Exchange running rules, and anybody gone through and trying to look at mail flow and run a trace on that, it's brutal. It takes a long time, and your ability to more accurately filter to what you're looking for and get details out of it is very little. Uh,
It's really important. I think a lot of security teams and security leaders are strapped for resources constantly. We use this term like alert budget. How much alert budget do you actually have to work with? Across every industry, including yours, the threat landscape is obviously very dynamic. Thankfully, it keeps us all employed. But in what ways have you seen email security, productivity suite security evolve over the years? And maybe what factors do you contribute to those changes, both from a attacker perspective and from a defender perspective?
I think we could all agree that they're changing on the daily. That as we look at some of the techniques that are being used, there's a lot of times that we take a step back and go, kudos. That was clever. That was really good. There's almost like an admiration for some of the attempts that come through. So I think finding those partners that have not only the data science teams, but the platform that can really leverage that is a major part of us being able to keep up with some of those threats. Because again, a rather small team. So if it's all incumbent on us to try to figure out those evolving threats, we're going to lose every time. And that's why we look to partner with those that are able to adapt. And that was one of the huge things as we think about agility that led us to Material as well. That what we've seen in the ability to take some of the ideas that we've come up with and build them into the platform and make changes on the fly. I can't say I've seen that before in a company of this size that's had this much success. So that becomes really good. That as you think about it from the team's perspective, the additional buy-in that they had, that hey, not only did we move to this platform, but they are listening to us. They're making changes and making our lives easier. Huge.
Overall, what were some of the contributing factors from moving off of a secure email gateway to adopt an API-based email security solution?
I would say the biggest thing for me was visibility. There was probably lack of better terms here, a little bit of trepidation because the industry's always been in the seg model, right? That we've always done the proxy for email. So moving to API was like, this is vastly different. But then you start to recognize that the efficiencies and speed gains that you get because
Yep.
of that
Yep.
is massive. And I think one of my first messages to Tom when I joined the Cabinetworks group team is I can't get any data from our email provider, and trying to bubble that up and talk the audit committee through what are the risks that we're seeing and how are we responding to them. I'm completely at a deficit. I have nothing to show them any meaningful data to pull out of that. You feel helpless at that point because the audit committee is looking at you to how are you protecting the company? What are you doing to move us? But spinning that now and talking the audit committee through, hey, we just made this major move to Material and gained us all of this additional visibility, this speed, efficiency on the team has sat really well with them.
With the other email security, you basically had to look in two places. You had to look at the gateway level, and then you also had to go into Exchange and look at both places. Very seldom now, I don't have to go into Exchange because, again, Material is already looking at what is in Exchange.
To add on to that, if we think about how Exchange was built in those tools, was really more just on the technical side. It doesn't give you any data that really ties back to risk and understanding. It really limits your ability to respond to events.
That's exactly right. And when you think about email security on the surface, you think about email as a delivery method and you stop there. And if you're treating it like a security, like a perimeter, you're just worried about delivery. But something to think about is email as a attack vector, as an attack target with all of the sensitive data. And it starts to become a much larger problem domain. And you're both infrastructure people, and you recognize that the job is often a heavy set of disjointed wrangling efforts. And you're not just wrangling attacks, you're wrangling system configurations, user behaviors, you're wrangling all of the data. And if those things are not, well correlated, it's really hard to find anything useful. So I'm glad that you both
Right.
recognized that and came to the right conclusion.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, and to put a bullet point on that as well, I think a big testament to that is that there's a lot of companies out there that'll give you the roadmap, and the roadmap looks great. Um, how often do you actually see company execute on that roadmap? And I think that's what we saw differently, really, with Material. And that was as you start to meet the Material team, you start to understand passion for the agility for what they're doing for organizations and the meaningful impact that they want to have on organizations and the teams that are running the tools to address risk within their environment, and it delivers.
Good lead into the next question. What were your first impressions as you started engaging with Material? And maybe what were some of the deciding factors in choosing us over alternatives?
At the end of the day, the team is who is in there on a daily basis. And the biggest thing for them, I'll keep going back to, is efficiency. Can I find quickly what I'm trying to get for? Or best case scenario, I don't have to search for anything because it already got stopped from the get go, which is great. And that ability and what really won them over is what I was talking about in agility and being able to deploy changes and some of the ideas that they brought to the table. That it was amazing going through the POC process. That one meeting we bring up an idea, and by the next meeting we go, "Oh yeah, here it's in the dev environment. Here, let me show you what we've already been working with and playing with." That is just that's a huge benefit to the team and being able to make those tweaks to how we operate on a daily basis.
What caught my eye is just the amount of information that you can get from the console and what all it does compared to what we have used before. Just the mass amount of data that is available to you at your fingertips was very appealing to me.
Right. Yeah. It's, I would tell you the look back alone
Correct.
was the aha moment. The depth of the data, really cool. It's geeking out from a technology standpoint. We've seen that evolution grow, that the more telemetry data that we're getting on each of those risks to better understand, here's the criteria that we looked at, here's why it should be flagged as risky, and here's why we stopped it, has continued to grow. And it's really insightful into to how many different types of attacks there are and how that's evolving in the email space.
Tell us a little bit about what that migration was like, and how did you get to the right confidence level where you could turn off your gateway solution?
Since it is an API, we could run them parallel and didn't really have any issues. And then when we were done with a POC and said, yep, okay, it's time to cut off our other, it was very easy. There's very little to no disruption from the end user.
That's great. And let's talk detections now. Email attacks can come from all sorts of angles and different flavors. Have you noticed any trends in Material in terms of how our detections have evolved over time? How your company is reporting suspicious messages? Anything notable since you've adopted Material on the detection front?
Yeah, I would say that there's almost a sense of pride from some of our employees in being able to report it. Because once you report it, then anybody who else got that email letting them
Yep.
know, hey, else within the organization also reported this. I want to verify that you really want to go to this link, that you know what you're doing. That we know there's no tool out there that is a silver bullet going to be 100%, right? Things are going to get through. So I think having those additional controls is really leveraging the power of all of our team members across the organization to collectively protect us.
What has been your experience working with a material team, both from an account management perspective and also from a technical support perspective?
Phenomenal. The willingness to be engaged with us during the whole aspect, whether it was the POC or the actual setup and the cutover and all that. It was exceptional. And even after the fact, the follow up, asking, hey, how's everything going? Is there anything that we can do better? Just from my standpoint, it's been phenomenal.
Yeah, it very much, the whole onboarding process was very white glove. And entertaining all of the questions, walking us through all the different components, walking us through, here's what we're seeing other customers do, here's our best practices, here's how you minimize any impact to the organization, really helped us.
So we've run dedicated sessions with you where we take our data science team, they unpack some in-depth findings across your environment. How have we helped uncover some findings that maybe uncover trends around phishing attacks or trends around sensitive data across your workforce?
Yeah, so I would actually say that the sensitive data one was a huge one because it actually empowered us to have a conversation with people that as we rolled out the protecting where you had to put in MFA past a certain point for some of the sensitive emails. And naturally, everybody gravitates towards, I'm going to need that email because I think a lot of people look at email as, unfortunately, a storage location, not what it was meant to do. But actually being able to show, hey, since we've had this turned on, you've only gone back X number of times. Do you really need that data? And then I think once you started explaining to them the additional protection that, hey, at some point somebody could get into your mailbox, but because this is now protected, they couldn't get to what matters most within your email. Been a huge kind of light bulb moment for them, helping them understand why we had that change, as well as you think about it just from a visibility standpoint, that now it's another way I can look at my mailbox for productivity, that if I'm looking for mail that might have had an invoice, or if I'm in HR and I'm looking for something that might have been about an employee, I got to look back, that I can now clearly see that, hey, this was flagged, this is sensitive, this is what I'm looking for. So it helps start to delineate through some of the noise in mailboxes.
Yeah, that's super helpful. So in terms of kind of integrations with your security operations center, I'd love to hear a little bit about anything that you have material hooked into and which material events are you subscribed to, and then how are you responding to any of those as they come in to your tooling?
Yeah. So what's interesting there is, so every month I go through the team and have one-on-ones with them. And one of the questions I had asked them this month was about starting to take some of the alerts in material and starting to port them over to, so we use Microsoft Sentinel as our SIM. And the resounding answer was no, we want them to stay right in material. Why? Because we get all of the telemetry data and it's much easier to find additional data points within material. So they are very content on, we want to work just in this portal because it's much more intuitive.
Oh, we love to hear that. Especially as we start to unify a lot of the risk areas across Microsoft 365, it's good to have a single view into not just email information, but account information, sensitive data, trying to look at things in a more unified fashion. So I'm glad to hear that
Right.
people like the material dashboard in that sense.
Well, plus there's additional data there that's tough to get in other places. I will say Microsoft does a great job of logging, but actually being able to take those logs and parse them together and make them usable is not the easiest thing in the world. And starting to understand that, okay, an email came in, I got the telemetry data about the email, but then I start to understand a mail forwarding rule or something else was created. I can now start to piece together activity that happened after the email, rather again to going back to the swivel chair activity and having to go between all those different portals. So when that's already available to us in one place, there's just not a lot of drive to start porting it somewhere else where I got to piece it together again.
What would you say are materials most unique capabilities in the market compared to what else you've seen?
As we take a look at the competition out there is really focused on just the email side, but taking a step back and understanding that email is just one component of the overall collaboration stack. Not to diminish email is important, right? That it is still one of the areas where we see the majority of attacks, but we're starting to see those pivots. So starting to look at from a broader lens, how the different collaboration components play together and being able to apply those rules, the telemetry, the visibility across that entire collaboration stack is a huge market differentiator for us.
That's great to hear. Thank you both so much for your time. This was a fantastic conversation. Now, Erik, I understand you have lots of these conversations because you host a podcast called The Great Security Debate. I'd love to hear just a little bit about what topics you cover.
Absolutely. Yeah. The focus area was taking the learnings that we've had in the boardroom and how do we start to distill those down and break them down to smaller organization, bite-sized chunks, and being able to, number one, better understand security, but two, apply them and understand how do I actually curb risk within my organization. There's nothing scripted ahead of time. That as it kicks off, it says you're now joining the conversation and process, and that's literally what it is. A couple of us that jump on video, have a conversation, record it, and post it.
Love it. Those are the best conversations to have. Glad we got to have one as a group here today.